Welcome back to Ultralife Today and part 3 of an astonishing interview that we're having with Dr. J. Dunn. You can learn more about her at myhappygenes.com, genes spelled Genes. I'm Josh Bellew. I'm here with Adam Payne, and Dr. Dunn, my goodness, you are schooling Adam and I love it when I see Adam get excited like truly a kid in a candy store, and he gets these giggly looks on his face because he's an innovator at heart, and he loves learning stuff like this, and so do I. So we've probably got some great places to go in this third and fourth segment that we're going to do with you. So let's move back. I think we ended up a little bit where I was saying, I bet you've had all kinds of people come to you that had hit the wall, even with integrative and functional medicine practitioners. I'm just guessing, Lyme's disease, so many other different things where they go, I can't get any help. And you're going, I think I may have a key for this. So I would love to hear some of those interactions you've had with patients that basically had given up. And I say this because I'm personally vested in this. I have a child that has really dealt with something for 30 plus years. And it's like, I'm going to be reaching out to you and myhappygenes.com.
But I just want to give a preview before you jump in, Dr. Dunn. So last week, we were talking about this connection to learning about the genome and learning about functional ways that we can address these defects that we have in metabolically in the body. And you talked about your vitamin D receptor issue. And it wasn't just like pump the solution, which this is what blew my mind and turned me into a kid in a candy store, was that you said, well, the solution wasn't just to dump more vitamin D into my body. The solution was to look at the receptor where the vitamin D is brought into the body, and then look at the cofactors that allow it to be absorbed into the body or into the cell. And that was, in the case of vitamin D, it was K2 and
K2.
vitamin A. And you shared with us last week that when you had added those cofactors into your body, within 2 weeks, your brain came alive.
Yeah, it was actually a couple of days.
A couple of days. Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that got my attention, and I think, when it works for us, we go, okay, I think we're onto something, especially because I'd been working on my depression for 45 years, 50 years.
Oh, my goodness.
And it was like, bam. So here are the two clues. Like I said, my father dying of lung cancer, but his best friend, both of who smoked and drank and never did anything healthy. One lived 30 years longer than the other. I went, has to be genes. And then there was a study there under the vitamin D receptor research. And I was like, okay, well, this makes sense. And then the chronic fatigue syndrome that I had just completely went away. And so I'm like, all right, I think we're onto something. I'm digging. And so I went back and I started studying biochemistry. I really did not like biochemistry.
Nobody does.
I love it now because I know it. I understand it, and I can see it in action in the body. So I started looking at what happens at the cellular level, what's going on down there, and how are the genes affecting that. So inside the cell, lots of things are happening. Like we're making energy, right, through the mitochondria. We make ATP. We're breaking down histamine, and allergies are involved there. We're detoxing. We're taking a phase 1, phase 2 detox. That happens at the cellular level.
Yeah,
there are genetic variants.
Yep.
Yeah, inflammation pathways. So we're looking at nitric oxide pathways, inflammatory pathways like the peroxynitrites and nitric oxide derivatives like peroxynitrites. I was like, oh my God. I just started thinking in these biochemical terms. They started coming to my dreams almost. I was like trying to figure out where does this pathway go and how does it lead to this? And then we plugged in the genes in those pathways. So let me give you a cool one. This one is really interesting. So our body takes in food. We make energy out of it. That's the Cliff Notes, right?
Right.
But you can have genetic variants along the way that block that. So this person, imagine they've got a genetic variant here that keeps their body from turning food into energy. They're going to gain weight and they're going to be tired.
Right, because there's going to be more of that food is going to be diverted towards storage. Because their body's saying, oh, you have enough energy, you're fine. We're just going to put all this stuff away into long-term storage. Interesting.
Right. And this is not a mistake. This is a variant that was selected for in your genome because your ancestors survived during times of starvation, right?
Interesting.
So those people that could store fat were going to survive, where people that couldn't were out the door. So it was a gene that was sort of like perpetuated in our genetics.
But those people that have the low energy though are gonna feel low energy in life, so they're gonna be blah, and that they're gonna get overweight. So it does serve people that are genetically are going to be faced with famine for a long time, but it doesn't serve most of humanity today. So
exactly, because we have plenty of calories. You know?
Yeah. So what do we do?
Oh, you want the answer? Okay.
Well, for that person, right? Not everybody's like this, right? So there's only some people that are like this.
There are several genetic variants along the way there that we would look at. So again, we're looking at cofactors or coenzymes. Cofactors are the minerals, and the coenzymes are the vitamins that upregulate these particular enzymes that are coded by the genes. Hope I didn't lose you there.
No, you're good.
So here's this enzyme going, I don't have the right code. I'm only working at about 30%. So my body's putting on all this weight. I'm tired, hungry all the time, putting on more weight. How do we upregulate that enzyme to make it work better? We find out what cofactors involved and what coenzymes involved, and we give higher doses. So this person needs higher doses of, let's say, carnitine or CoQ10 or ergothioneine, and it turns that pathway on, and people suddenly have energy, they lose weight, they feel amazing. And so it turns on the mitochondria to a higher level. And so it's like, that's pretty exciting to get in there and biohack basically our biochemistry.
Or it actually turns it to a level that should be metabolically and normal, right? So that intake of food is actually producing enough energy, and that you're only storing the appropriate amount of excess, not this, but this, which would then allow you to regain homeostasis. So
and the same thing happened with people. I had this patient, and it was just sort of a light bulb moment again. She comes in, she's grossly overweight, and she's flown down from New York to see me in New Mexico. I was practicing in New Mexico then. And, she had to buy 2 tickets to come down. She was so big. I'm talking to her about diet, as any healthcare practitioner would be. Like, hey, what are you eating? How often do you eat that? What time do you eat it? I have found through my practice that never works. Talking to people about, let's cut out the sugar. They're like, can I still have my cookies? No, it has sugar in it. So anyway, it was pretty obvious that she was eating more calories than she needed. And the traditional, functional medicine approach is to talk to her about her diet. Well, her brain is hungry. Her brain isn't making energy. Her cells aren't making energy. And so when I put her on a methylation program, suddenly her cells turn on. She's making energy. She's not hungry. She's not as hungry. She's not craving carbohydrates anymore. She's not craving the sugars.
Wow.
She calls me up when she gets home, and she said, oh my God, she said, I can't tell you how much shame and guilt I've had because I can't stop eating sugar. I just felt like I had no willpower. She said, I don't even want it now. It doesn't even sound good. My body my energy's turning on. I don't crave the carbohydrates anymore. And I can feel my cells, starting to have energy. And
wow.
I went, this is huge. This is a paradigm shift. So if we think about people,
can we just
stop judging them?
Fast forward on this lady? Has her life turned around completely?
Yeah, well, not long after that, I quit practice because I thought, I got to teach this to doctors. It was I was seeing so many of these kind of studies. All these stories, I'm like, Lyme disease was turning around, leaky gut was turning around, like MS, Parkinson's, ALS, everything was starting to reverse. And I went, we're onto something. We're onto something big. So I was doing a lot of research. I had a research team in my clinic, and we started in. And I want to get back to you, Adam, for a second.
Sure.
You have genetic variants in methylation pathways.
Yes.
We started seeing people that had the MTHFR gene, which is what turns folic acid into the methylated form of folic acid, right? If you have a genetic variant there, you can't do that, and you can't make methylfolate.
That's right.
So we were giving patients methylfolate. but they were getting sick. They were getting really sick. Massive amounts of detoxification were happening because that turns on. When you turn on methylation, your body's going to detox. It's going to throw out all the heavy metals, chemicals, pesticides. Everything's going to come out at once. So everybody we gave it to, they were great for like a week. And then all of a sudden, bam, the headaches start and they feel terrible. They're hurting all over. And we did too. And we're like, what's going on here? So we started to look at how does the methylation pathway link into the ATP production or the mitochondrial citric acid cycle?
Yeah.
How does it fit into the inflammatory pathway? How does it fit into the brain chemistry pathway? So I created this map that shows, okay, here's methylation, here's detox, here's brain chemistry, here's nitric oxide inflammation, here's energy production. And it became sort of our roadmap for understanding the interplay. And that was the key. So you turn on methylation, you've turned on all kinds of other processes in the body, and you have to manage that. So the VDR, let's say somebody goes out, they've heard my lecture, they go out and they start taking vitamin K and A with vitamin D. Now they've turned on the production of serotonin, dopamine, adrenaline, and they're going to feel amazing for about a week. But if they've got genetic variants underneath there that doesn't allow them to get rid of those, we've just sent them into anxiety, ADD.
Right, the norepinephrine is going to accumulate.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so that they need other things to mitigate now accumulations downstream.
Exactly. You have to look at what's happening downstream. And that was the big lesson. And so we created this system that starts at, this is number one. This is the number one area you have to take care of.
Yep.
And then number two. So we follow those pathways until we can turn on methylation. Methylation is the last thing we turn on because it's so powerful.
Oh, interesting.
And it upregulates all the other genes. So you got to make sure you know what you're doing. And we did this through trial and error, making people sick, making ourselves sick. We were the guinea pigs. We're like, yeah, stuff's coming out of our ears.
We get that.
It was like. Yeah.
So that's a hard learning actually. And
it was well worth it.
And then it was but then it led to some cool insights into the human biology. But you've taken all of this and you've brought it together into a system that you call it's myhappygenes.com, right?
No, it was holistic methylation. And so I traveled around the country teaching doctors how to do this, how to use muscle testing to figure out where those genetic variant stops were, the slow down in their pathways, and then give the cofactors. So I knew what the cofactors were. There was a way you can do it with muscle testing to find where things were slowing down. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, it was really cool and very successful.
We've got about a minute left in this segment, but before we go to chapter 4 in this amazing story, I just want to rewind the tape a little bit. You mentioned something about the lady that came to you and had to buy 2 seats on an airplane. You touched on something that I think is so important for all of our listeners. We go around for years in our life being beat up by guilt and by shame because we can't lose weight. We can't gain weight. We have brain fog all the time. We have these different diseases. And you've come up with something that in so many ways inspires me to think there's a lot of emotional healing and mental healing that takes place for your patients that go through this process because they're no longer blaming themselves and they no longer have to accept the blame of their well-meaning loved ones and friends and coworkers, right?
You nailed it, Josh. And that's what I call genetic compassion because it just completely changed the way I thought about what was going on with people and my judgment. I think we all kind of have some judgment, like wake up, just
go on autopilot and just do what we say. And you're not ever going to do what we say, and you're not ever going to get the results. No one size fits all. You're listening to Dr. J. Dunn. This is, I think, going to be my favorite interview of the year, Adam, and we've had some great ones. Adam Payne, CEO of Ultra Botanica. I'm Josh Bell, your Chief Product Evangelist. We're going to be back in just a little bit for the 4th chapter on Ultra Life Today. We're so excited you're joining us for this fourth segment with Dr. Jay Dunn of myhappygenes.com. I'm Josh Bellew. I'm here with Adam Payne. We're the Ultra Botanica guys, and we're so looking forward to wrapping this up. And I know that Adam and I are both thinking, how quickly can we get you on the calendar to come back and keep exploring this amazing space that you've kind of helped? It almost seems like you've been a pioneer in this space, and it's so exciting. So, Adam, remind us of what we are in store for in this next segment.
Well, Josh, thanks for joining us for this last segment here with Dr. Dunn. Dr. Dunn, it's been such a pleasure to get to know you and to learn your life story and your journey. I feel like God has woven a thread through your life and pulled it tight and said, hang on to your seat. So many people, I'm sure, have been affected and benefited from the wisdom that you've been able to bring forth. And it has to do with understanding our genes and then understanding what we can do about that deck of cards that we've been dealt. And it can be so, a lot of us, I think, as you mentioned earlier on, we tend to internalize our experience of life and blame it on our father, our mother, our upbringing, and things like that. And so few of us realize that we can actually regain what we would call a homeostatic or a normal, fulfilling, energetic life, right? Where we have energy and we have motivation and we have an outlook that's positive rather than negative based upon the energy that we don't have or the depression that we feel on a constant basis. Most of those are symptoms that people try to treat symptomatically, either through the medical establishment or trying to figure out what nutritional supplements might work for us. But you've come up with a proactive approach that combines looking at the genes with a functional roadmap of what we do with those genes that we've been dealt in order to balance out all of the deficient pathways that we have in the body. And I'd like to welcome. Where can people get more information about this, Dr. Dunn? How can they connect into and get more insight about their genes and what they can do about them in their life?
Well, again, good question. When I was teaching around the country, I had about 500 practitioners who have taken the class so far. But then COVID hit, and so it was, the in-class kind of thing was shut down. But it was good timing because I was ready to put this online. So if anybody's interested in taking the course, the level 1, level 2 are online if you want to really learn it.
Wonderful.
Level 3 certification course that I do here in Atlanta area. But I started to think, we could help a whole lot more people. I wonder if I could create a software algorithm that would do this. It would calculate, what we were talking about. You have the vitamin D receptor and you have the MAO gene or the COMT gene that's downstream from that. Can the software, kind of do an algorithm that shows the interplay of those? And so that's what I did next. It was like, okay, I'm taking this to the world. And that's where I created my Happy Genes. And the Happy Genes part of it, of course, my own reset of my brain was instrumental in naming it. And I'm very passionate about the brain chemistry part of it because it's so fast. It's like people were coming in. I had this one guy that was grouchy, and he had MS, and his wife kind of wheels him into my treatment room, and she accidentally hit the side of the door. She was coming in, and he turns around and he's like, watch where you're going, Emily. I can't believe it. Yeah. And we're both just sort of like, oh, wow, grouchy.
Yeah.
So she's got this look on her face like, this is my life,
Wow.
So we put him on a program. We put him on a general program. It isn't like, oh, I'm going in and I'm going to treat the grouchy factor. It's like, this is a systemic program that we put him on, very targeted nutrition for his genes. He comes back in the next month and she's wheeling him into the room. And he turns around and he says, thank you, Emily. And we both looked at each other like, and she's
how beautiful is that?
Like,
Wow.
He was a complete
Wow.
person. The chi was gone.
So now,
And it
so
was
for
like,
all of our listeners
no.
that are now thinking, I need whatever cocktail you gave Mr. Grouchy there for my husband or for my wife. Obviously, it's not just
No.
there's not just one prescription fits all Grouchy, right? No.
There is not. And unfortunately, that's what we call the warrior gene, MAO, and its job is to break down serotonin. And okay, we're all used to thinking more serotonin the better, we're happier. No. It's like all about balance. Too much serotonin can make you very grouchy and irritable and OCD, and so it's all about balance. But anyway, one of the things, the interesting thing is we were talking about curcumin and how it's anti-inflammatory, and for most people a really good choice because there's way too much inflammation in our bodies.
Yep.
And I want to talk about why that is for a second. But for this gene, you don't want to give them curcumin because it'll downregulate the function of that MAO gene and make it worse, make them more grouchy. So this is this was the
So
thing.
important.
That it's very specific targeted nutrition for you and your genes, not anybody else's, and everybody's program is very different. So I thought, wow, the software can do this, but
you have to give it the inputs, right? So you need to do a genomic test before you can.
Yes.
Right. And is that the 23andMe or can Ancestry.com or do you do your own genomic collection?
Yeah, we decided to do our own, and for several reasons. One is something you mentioned earlier was the security issue. So 23andMe and Ancestry actually sells your data, and we don't know where that's going to go. I don't want to be paranoid, but I just think it can get into the wrong hands, and I've heard some horror stories about that. But so it's like, okay, that's our number one reason we want to go and get our private lab, so that what we do is we have a barcode on our DNA test. I don't know if you can see that, but it's right there, MHG. That's the only information that the lab gets is that barcode. They never know anything about you.
No personally identifiable information, and that's so important to people in these times. It is. Yeah.
And then they destroy your sample after 3 months of being there. So it's like all trace of it is gone. It comes back to our software program and is calculated, and we print out 5 reports from that. But and you can label it anything you want. You could put any name on there you want to put on there. So again, we're protecting your security. Second reason was they only test for about 40,000 SNPs. We're testing for 655,000 SNPs.
What?
So I have much more.
Where did you pull that library from? How is this?
The lab that we're using is it keeps expanding. It gets cheaper and cheaper to do DNA testing these days. So I keep getting bigger and bigger files. But we're looking at the genes that are associated with how your body functions, how well you detox, how well you get rid of inflammation, how well you make energy, how well you get rid of
Sign me up. I want a report. So do you need a practitioner to order this, or can anybody go online and order their report?
Yeah, you can get 2 of the reports are available to the consumer, but there are 3 more that are only available to healthcare providers. And the supplement recommendations that come out at the end have to be under the care of a physician, because we don't know what medications you're on or what contraindications for taking things. If we give you vitamin K and you're on a blood thinner, we're gonna mess you up.
Yeah, so makes sense.
I wanted the supplements to be under the care of a physician and somebody guiding you on how to do it. You can get the mood and personality report, which gives you almost 600 genes, that are metabolically related. So how well you detox, how well you repair, all of those things, inflammation. And again, I want to circle back to inflammation in a second. But so we, the 3 reports, one of them is a health-oriented report. So it's more we have the mood and personality, diet and lifestyle. The diet and lifestyle tells you like what combination of carbs, proteins, and fats are going to be best for you.
Sure.
What foods you shouldn't do. Fermented foods for me, bad idea. I've got some of the genes that can't break down the tyramines in a lot of fermented foods. And I didn't know why I reacted to like beer and wine for the longest time, and chocolate, and forget what else has tyramine. Anyway, those foods always bothered me, but now I know why. When I looked at my genes and I looked at, oh, wow, they're all tyramine foods that I react to.
Interesting.
Oh, I get it. So it's really interesting. The diet is very, very much tied into our genes, your best diet. There's no one size fits all for any of us.
We're going to have to get some of some of the physicians and naturopaths in Oklahoma City connected into your panel. Like I'm sure Kinsey Taylor and Dave Mason, who's a
Mary Jane Fry.
Mary Jane Fry would love. So many physicians and integrative folks here in Oklahoma that I think will just love what you're doing here, and giving them a whole different level of tools that provide information to us, so that we can actually make better informed decisions about our genome and our diet and our supplementation. Because there's literally hundreds of concentrated supplements out there in the world of supplementation, and probably thousands at this point. You can go to pure encapsulations. You can go to life extensions. You can go to all these places. Just go to any well-stocked health food store, and there's literally thousands of choices out there. And to make an informed decision about what is going to help, overwhelming. You know, we help people with out of control inflammation in the body, and for the population of people that are dealing with chronic joint dysfunction, tendonitis, bursitis, all the itises out there in the world, their lives are going to be dominated by an out of control inflammation until they can get that back into balance. Now, I think you would agree, Dr. Dunn, that there could be a lot of predisposing factors that can make somebody prone to a higher inflammatory response or a poor mitigation of an inflammatory response. And that's where wisdom from your toolkit could really play a big deal.
Okay. Just a quick overview of that. But we look at all the genes that might be associated with inflammation, and then we give you a slider, like where you land on, here's 100%, here's 0. So we look at, where are you likely to end up.
Interesting.
And so if it's 75%, you're at high risk of inflammation. This would be a good application for some of your products that really address that.
Yeah, I mean, our stuff works. We really get these polyphenols into the body, and we offer free samples for people. That anybody that wants to try them, they can go to ultratoday.com or in any of the health food stores in the greater Tulsa area at Aikens, or in Sapulpa at Rock Creek Herb, and what was the other one up there in Bartlesville? I can't remember at the top of my head.
Billy's Health Foods, and of course we've got a store locator on ultratoday.com as well that they can find health practitioners all over the country, and hopefully we're going to be populating that with health practitioners that are familiar with your holistic methylation and can really help some of our people dial in on their health needs and the health challenges they've faced, they and their families. This has been Ultra Life Today with Dr. Jay Dunn. Visit myhappygenes.com. Share this interview with people all over the country, because this is the kind of cutting edge stuff we need to help our population begin to heal in our minds and our bodies. I'm Josh Bellew. This is Adam Payne right here as well, CEO of Ultra Botanica. Dr. J, thank you so very much, and we have to have you back on sometime soon. Join us on Ultra Life Today.
I would love that.
Thanks.